Dr. Hansol Kim stood alone in his office at Seoul National University Hospital, looking at blood test results. The clock on the wall showed 11:30 p.m. Most of the hospital staff had gone home, but he always worked late. As the head of the blood research department, he had many responsibilities. Suddenly, a bright blue light filled his office. At first, he thought it was lightning, but the light stayed too long. He walked to his window and looked outside. What he saw made him freeze. A small spaceship, about the size of a car, was falling from the sky. It gave off the bright blue light. The ship was heading straight for the hospital's empty courtyard. Hansol watched as it crashed, making less noise than he expected. Instead of an explosion, there was only a soft thud and the sound of breaking tree branches. Hansol ran down the stairs. His heart beat fast, but his doctor's training kept him calm. When he reached the courtyard, he saw the damaged ship. Its metal surface looked smooth and had strange patterns that glowed faintly. Smoke came from one side where it had hit the ground. Then he heard it, a sound like someone in pain. Without thinking about danger, Hansol moved closer to the ship. A door opened smoothly, releasing more smoke. In the doorway, he saw someone fall out. The person who fell was clearly not human. She, Hansol somehow knew it was female, had pale blue skin that seemed to glow slightly. Her face looked almost human, but her eyes were larger and completely silver. Her hair looked like flowing water, changing colors between blue and purple. The alien tried to stand but couldn't. Hansol noticed she was bleeding from several wounds. But her blood wasn't red. It was a bright, glowing purple. She looked at him with those silver eyes and spoke in perfect English. "Please, help me," she said weakly. "I am Ambassador Era of the Lumerian people. My ship was damaged by solar radiation. I am dying." Hansol didn't hesitate. He was a doctor first, and here was someone who needed help. He knelt beside her and checked her vital signs. Her skin felt cool to the touch, and her pulse was very fast and irregular. "I'm Dr. Hansol Kim," he said calmly. "I'm going to help you. Can you tell me what's wrong?" Era's voice shook as she spoke. "The radiation. It's destroying my blood cells. Our medicine was damaged in the crash. Without treatment, I have perhaps 2 hours left." Hansol called the emergency department using his phone. He knew this was bigger than him, but right now, she needed medical help. Soon, his colleague Dr. Jae-yun Park arrived with a medical team and a stretcher. Jae-yun stopped when she saw Era. Her eyes went wide, but like Hansol, her medical training took over. They carefully moved Era to a private room in the emergency department. Security guards kept watch, and a hospital director was called. As they worked to stabilize Era, Hansol studied her blood under a microscope. What he saw amazed him. Her blood cells were completely different from human blood, but they were clearly dying. The radiation had damaged them beyond repair. Looking at his patient's suffering face, Hansol knew he had to find a solution fast. But as he watched her condition get worse, he realized Earth's medical technology might not be enough to save her. Then he noticed something interesting about her dying blood cells. They reminded him of a rare condition he had studied in human blood. An idea formed in his mind. A crazy, possibly dangerous idea. But it might be their only chance to save her life. Hansol looked at the ambassador's weakening form. He had to make a decision soon, or she wouldn't survive the night. The biggest medical challenge of his career lay before him, and time was running out. Hansol looked through his microscope again. He had been studying Ambassador Era's blood for an hour, and her condition was getting worse. The alien's breathing had become shallow, and her glowing blue skin was turning dull gray. He called Dr. Jae-yun Park over to his workstation. "Look at this," he said, pointing to the microscope. "Her blood cells are similar to human cells in some ways. They carry oxygen like ours do, but the radiation has damaged them." Jae-yun studied the sample carefully. "What are you thinking, Hansol?" He took a deep breath. I want to try something that might sound crazy. I want to give her my blood. Jae-yun stepped back in shock. Human blood? That's too dangerous. We don't know how her body will react. It could kill her instantly. She's dying anyway, Hansol said quietly. He showed Jae-yun another slide under the microscope. This is my blood. I have a rare blood type that can adapt to different conditions. Look how her dying blood cells react when mixed with mine. Jae-yun looked through the microscope. Her eyes widened as she watched Hansol's blood cells somehow support and strengthen Era's failing ones. This is impossible, she whispered. Nothing is impossible in medicine anymore, Hansol said. He walked over to Era's bed. Her silver eyes were now clouded with pain. Ambassador, I think I found a way to save you, but it's risky. I want to give you some of my blood. Era tried to focus on his face. Human blood. That has never been done before. The differences between our species. I know, Hansol said. But look. He showed her the test results on a tablet. Even in her weakened state, Era understood what she saw. Your blood. It's special, she said. But the risk to you. I'm willing to take that risk, Hansol said firmly. We don't have much time left. The hospital director, who had been listening, stepped forward. Dr. Kim, this is extremely dangerous. If something goes wrong, the diplomatic problems alone. With respect, sir, Hansol interrupted, I took an oath to save lives. All lives. I'm not going to let her die, if there's even a small chance to save her. Jae-yun spoke up. If we're going to do this, we need to do it now. Her vital signs are dropping. Hansol rolled up his sleeve. Then let's begin. The procedure was unlike anything they had done before. They carefully mixed Hansol's blood with a solution Jae-yun created to make it more compatible with Era's system. As the first drops of treated human blood entered Era's veins, everyone held their breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Era's body began to glow brighter. Her vital signs, which had been falling, started to stabilize. The gray color of her skin slowly changed back to its natural blue. But as Era got stronger, Hansol grew weaker. The process was taking more from him than expected. His vision began to blur, and he had to sit down. That's enough, Jae-yun said firmly, stopping the transfusion. Any more could be dangerous for you. Hansol wanted to argue, but he could barely keep his eyes open. The last thing he saw before passing out was Era's face, her silver eyes clear again, looking at him with wonder and gratitude. When he woke up hours later in a hospital bed, Jae-yun was checking his vital signs. You're going to be weak for a while, she told him. But it worked. Ambassador Era is recovering. You did something incredible today, Hansol. In the bed next to him, Era was sitting up, her color fully restored. She turned to him and smiled. You saved my life by sharing your blood, she said softly. My people have never experienced such selflessness from another species. This changes everything we thought we knew about humans. Hansol tried to smile back, but he was too tired. As he drifted back to sleep, he had no idea just how much this event would change both their lives and the relationship between their species. Forever. 3 weeks had passed since the blood transfusion. Hansol remained in the hospital, recovering slowly. The doctors had never seen anything like his condition. His body was taking much longer than usual to make new blood cells. During this time, Ambassador Era visited him every day. Today, she sat beside his bed, her blue skin glowing softly in the morning light. Hansol noticed that her glow seemed different now, somehow more similar to human skin tones, while still remaining blue. The doctors say I can return to work next week, Hansol said, sitting up in his bed. He still felt tired, but he was much stronger than before. Era touched his hand gently. Her skin, which used to feel cool, was now closer to human temperature. You have given up so much to save me, she said. My people have studied humans for years, but we never understood your capacity for kindness. Hansol smiled. Any doctor would have done the same. No, Era said firmly. Many would have let me die rather than risk themselves. You are different. She paused, looking troubled. But there is something I must tell you. The mixing of our blood, it has caused changes. Hansol sat up straighter, suddenly alert. What kind of changes? My body is adapting to the human elements in your blood. It is not harmful, she added quickly, seeing his worried look. But it is unprecedented. My scientists say that your blood has started to alter my genetic code in small ways. Dr. Jae-yun Park entered the room carrying test results. She had been studying both Hansol and Era's blood samples daily. She's right, Jae-yun said, showing them the papers. Ambassador, your cellular structure is showing some human characteristics. And Hansol, your new blood cells have traces of Lumerian properties. Hansol studied the results with interest. Is this dangerous for either of us? No, Jae-yun said. In fact, both of you seem to be getting stronger. But it's completely new territory in medical science. The implications are enormous. Era stood and walked to the window. My superiors on the Lumerian Council are very interested in these changes. They want me to return home for detailed study. They believe this discovery could lead to important medical advances for both our species. Hansol felt a strange sadness at the thought of her leaving. Over the past weeks, their daily conversations had become the highlight of his days. They had talked about everything. Their different cultures, their work, their hopes for the future. He had grown to care deeply for her. When do you have to leave? He asked quietly. Tomorrow, Era replied, her silver eyes showing emotion he hadn't seen before. But there is something else. Something the council doesn't know yet. She hesitated. The changes in my body are still happening. Your blood didn't just save me. It changed me in ways we don't fully understand. Before she could explain further, her communication device made a sound. The council, she said, looking at it. They want to speak with me immediately. She turned to Hansol, speaking quickly. I have to go now, but remember, what happened between us may have greater consequences than anyone realizes. She touched his hand one last time, then hurried from the room. Hansol watched her go, feeling that there was much she hadn't told him. Jae-yun looked thoughtfully at the door where Era had disappeared. I don't think this is the end of the story, Jae-yun said quietly. The way her genetic structure is changing. I've never seen anything like it. Hansol nodded, still looking at the door. No, he said, I don't think this is the end either. He didn't know why, but he felt certain that Era would return. What he didn't know was how much everything would change when she did. 6 months had passed since Ambassador Era left Earth. Hansol had returned to his work at the hospital, but things were different now. His research focused on studying the remaining samples of mixed human and Lumerian blood. The medical community worldwide showed great interest in his findings. One quiet evening, as Hansol worked late in his laboratory, the familiar blue light appeared again. This time, it came from the hospital's helipad. His heart began to beat faster as he hurried to the roof. A small Lumerian ship, sleeker than the previous one, had landed safely. The door opened and Era stepped out. Hansol stopped, surprised by her appearance. Her once bright blue skin now had a subtle peach tone mixed with the blue. Her flowing hair, still changing between blue and purple, looked more like human hair in texture. Hansol, she said softly, walking toward him. I had to come back. She moved differently, more carefully, and held one hand protectively over her midsection. Are you ill? He asked, concerned by her changed appearance and careful movements. Era shook her head. No, not ill. But something unexpected has happened. Something that has never occurred in the history of our species. She took a deep breath. I am carrying a child. Your child. Hansol felt the world spin around him. He reached for the wall to steady himself. That's impossible, he whispered. The blood transfusion changed me more than anyone predicted, Era explained. My genetic structure adapted to become partially compatible with human DNA. The Lumerian Council's scientists confirmed it. This child carries both human and Lumerian genes. Dr. Jai-Yun Park, who had been working late as well, joined them on the roof. She saw Era and immediately noticed the changes in her appearance. "Ambassador, you look different." "She's pregnant," Hansol said, still trying to process the news. "With my child." Jai-Yun's professional calm broke for a moment as she stared at them both. "We need to get you to the medical bay immediately," she said, recovering quickly. "This is unprecedented. We need to run tests. Make sure you're both healthy." In the medical bay, Jai-Yun performed a thorough examination. The scanning equipment showed a developing child unlike anything they had seen before. The baby had characteristics of both species, yet seemed perfectly healthy. "The council ordered me to terminate the pregnancy," Era said quietly as they looked at the scan images. "They fear what this means for our species, but I refused. This child is a miracle, proof that our peoples can be more than just diplomatic allies." Hansol held her hand, noticing how the temperature of her skin now matched his exactly. "Whatever happens, I will support you," he said firmly. "Both of you." "The council may not accept this easily," Era warned. "They might see this child as a threat to our genetic purity. That's why I came back to Earth. I need your help, both of you." Jai-Yun studied the medical readings carefully. "From what I can see, this child is perfectly healthy. In fact, it shows signs of being stronger than either human or Lumerian infants. The combination of both species traits might have created something extraordinary. Then we'll prove it to them," Hansol said with determination. "We'll show them this child isn't a threat, but an opportunity. A bridge between our worlds." Era smiled, relief showing in her silver eyes. "I hoped you would say that. But we must be careful. The council will send representatives soon. They'll want to study this situation themselves." "Let them come," Jai-Yun said confidently. "We'll face this together, with science and compassion, both remarkable traits that humans and Lumerians share." As night fell over Seoul, the three of them began planning how to protect this unprecedented miracle. None of them knew that this child would become more than just a scientific marvel. It would change the future of both their species forever. The hospital had given Era and Hansol a private medical suite for safety and privacy. Dr. Jai-Yun Park worked tirelessly, conducting tests and documenting every aspect of this unprecedented pregnancy. What she discovered amazed the entire medical team. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the windows, Jai-Yun called Hansol and Era to review her findings. She spread out several medical charts on the table before them. "The baby is developing faster than either human or Lumerian children," Jai-Yun explained, pointing to the growth charts. "But more importantly, it's completely healthy. The combination of both species' DNA has created something remarkable." Hansol studied the charts carefully. "What do you mean?" "The child has the best traits of both species," Jai-Yun said, her voice filled with excitement. "It has the strong immune system of the Lumerians and the adaptability of human cells. The baby's brain shows signs of both human creativity and Lumerian logic patterns. It's not just surviving, it's thriving." Era placed a hand on her growing belly, which now had a subtle blue glow. "The council won't care about these benefits. They only see the threat to our genetic purity." As if summoned by her words, the computer screen in the room lit up with an incoming call from the Lumerian Council. 3 stern-faced Lumerian officials appeared on the screen. "Ambassador Era," the lead council member said coldly, "our final decision has been made. You must return immediately for the termination procedure. This hybrid cannot be allowed to exist. It poses too great a risk to our species." Hansol stepped forward, his voice firm but polite. "Council members, please review our medical data before making your final decision. This child could advance medical science for both our peoples." "We have seen enough," another council member said. "If you do not comply, Ambassador Era, you will be stripped of your position and labeled a traitor to our species." Era stood tall, her silver eyes flashing. Then I choose Earth as my home. I will not harm my child. This is your final warning, the third council member said. Return within 3 Earth days, or there will be serious consequences for both worlds. The screen went dark. The room fell silent except for the soft beeping of medical equipment. Jae-yun broke the silence first. We need to prepare for what's coming. I'll contact the hospital board and government officials. They need to know what's happening. Han-sol turned to Era, who looked worried but determined. We'll protect you both, he promised. Earth has changed since your first arrival. Many people here will support us. The council doesn't understand, Era said softly. This child isn't a threat to our species. It's proof that we can evolve, adapt, and grow stronger together. Jae-yun gathered more medical data on her tablet. I have an idea, she said. If we can prove that this pregnancy provides medical breakthroughs for both species, more people will support us. The scientific community already shows great interest in our preliminary findings. Han-sol nodded. We need to show them that this child represents hope, not danger. Every test shows the baby is healthy and special. As they talked, Era suddenly gasped and pressed her hand to her belly. Han-sol and Jae-yun rushed to her side, but she smiled. The baby is moving, she said. Here, feel. She took Han-sol's hand and placed it on her belly. He felt a strong kick and noticed that the spot glowed brighter at the touch. In that moment, he knew they would find a way to protect their child, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The news about Era's pregnancy spread quickly through the scientific community. 3 days after the Lumerian Council's ultimatum, the hospital conference room was filled with important people. Doctors, government officials, and reporters gathered to hear Dr. Jae-yun Park present their findings. Hospital Director Taiwan Lee stood at the podium first. What we have here is not a crisis, but an opportunity, he said firmly. The medical advances from studying this pregnancy could help millions of people. Jae-yun then presented their research data. She showed how the baby's unique genetic structure could lead to new treatments for both human and Lumerian diseases. The room grew quiet as they saw the potential benefits. In the middle of the presentation, the large screen behind them suddenly lit up. The Lumerian Council appeared, looking even more serious than before. We have heard enough, the lead council member announced. Since Ambassador Era refuses to return, we are forced to take action. All trade agreements between Earth and Lumeria are now suspended. The room erupted in concerned whispers. Earth relied on Lumerian technology for many things, especially in medicine and space travel. But then something unexpected happened. A group of younger Lumerian scientists appeared on a split screen. Their spokesperson, a female scientist named Mira, addressed both Earth and the Council. We disagree with the Council's position, Mira stated clearly. Many of us have studied the data from Earth. This child represents a scientific breakthrough that could benefit both our peoples. We support Ambassador Era's choice. Han-sol, who sat next to Era, felt hope growing. They weren't alone anymore. The council members looked shocked at this public challenge to their authority. More support came quickly. Earth's medical organizations released statements backing the pregnancy research. Universities offered to help study the medical benefits. Even some older Lumerian officials began questioning the council's harsh stance. The public supports you, Jae-yun told Era and Han-sol during a quiet moment. They see this as a story of love and progress, not a threat. Era touched her growing belly gently. My people fear change, she explained. But they also value knowledge and advancement. The council cannot ignore the scientific evidence forever. Han-sol noticed that Era looked tired. The stress of the situation affected her, even though she tried to hide it. He held her hand supportively. Maybe we should focus on your health now, he suggested. Let others handle the politics for a while. Jae-yun nodded in agreement. The baby's vital signs are strong, but you need rest, Era. The diplomatic issues can wait. As if to support this idea, The baby kicked strongly, making Era smile. The subtle blue glow of her skin brightened slightly, something that happened more often as the pregnancy progressed. "The council thinks this child will divide our peoples," Era said softly. "But look around. It's bringing us together instead. Humans and Lumerians working together, supporting each other. This is what the future could be." Later that evening, as Hansol watched Era sleep peacefully in the medical suite, he thought about how much had changed. A simple act of kindness, giving blood to save a dying alien, had started something much bigger than himself. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together, supported by people from both worlds who believed in a better future. Dr. Jae-yun Park stood before the International Medical Conference in Seoul, presenting the latest findings about Era's pregnancy. The room was filled with doctors and scientists from Earth and Lemuria, all eager to learn more about this unprecedented event. The hybrid child's genetic structure shows remarkable properties, Jae-yun explained, displaying detailed medical images on the large screen. Its cells can adapt to both human and Lumerian biology. This could revolutionize how we treat diseases in both species. In the front row, Hansol sat with Era, who was now in her final month of pregnancy. Her appearance had stabilized into a beautiful blend of both species, blue-tinted skin with a healthy human glow, and silver eyes that showed more expression than traditional Lumerian eyes. A respected Lumerian scientist named Dr. Mira stood up to speak. "Our research team has confirmed these findings," she announced. "The child's unique genetic structure could help us create new medicines that work for both species. Already, we have developed treatments for 3 previously incurable Lumerian diseases based on this research." The Earth's chief medical officer then shared more news. "Using Ambassador Era's modified genetic pattern, we have found ways to improve human resistance to radiation and certain types of cancer. This collaboration between our species has advanced medical science by decades." The Lumerian Council members, who attended virtually, could not ignore these results. The lead council member spoke, his tone noticeably softer than before. "We must acknowledge that our initial concerns were, perhaps, hasty. The medical benefits cannot be denied." Hansol squeezed Era's hand gently as more scientists presented their findings. Each new discovery showed how the hybrid pregnancy was helping both species. Human doctors had learned to better understand Lumerian biology, while Lumerian scientists gained new insights into human adaptability. During a break in the presentations, Hansol and Era walked slowly through the hospital garden. The evening air was cool and peaceful. "The council is changing their position," Era said, resting her hand on her rounded belly. "They see now that this child brings hope, not harm." "How do you feel about all this?" Hansol asked, noticing she looked thoughtful. "Happy," she replied simply. "Not just about the council's change of heart, but about everything. When my ship crashed here, I thought it was the worst day of my life. Instead, it led to something wonderful, a bridge between our peoples, a chance for real understanding." They returned to find Jae-yun reviewing more test results. "The baby's development continues to amaze us," she said, showing them the latest scans. "It has developed immunities to diseases that affect both species. This could help us protect future generations of both humans and Lumerians." Later that evening, the Lumerian Council called again. But this time, their message was different. After reviewing all evidence, the lead council member stated, "We formally withdraw our opposition to this pregnancy. Furthermore, we propose establishing a joint medical research program between our peoples, using these discoveries to benefit both worlds." The news spread quickly through both Earth and Lumerian communities. Support poured in from all sides. What had started as a controversial hybrid pregnancy had become a symbol of hope and progress for both species. As Hansol and Era prepared for their child's arrival, they knew they had achieved something greater than themselves. Their love had not only created a new life, but had also opened the door to a future where humans and Lumerians could work together, learn from each other, and grow stronger together. The morning sun lit up the special medical ward at Sewell National University Hospital. After hours of careful monitoring, a new cry filled the room, the first sound of its kind in human or Lemurian history. Dr. Jae-yun Park held up the newborn child, whose skin shimmered with a subtle blue glow while maintaining human warmth. "It's a boy," Jae-yun announced, smiling at Hansol and Era. "He's perfectly healthy." The baby had features from both parents. Hansol's dark hair and facial structure, combined with Era's silver eyes and the faintest blue tint to his skin. When he cried, his skin glowed slightly, just like his mother's. "He's beautiful," Era whispered, holding her son for the first time. The baby immediately calmed at his mother's touch. Hansol sat beside them, gently touching his son's small hand. "What will you name him?" Jae-yun asked, recording the historic moment. Hansol and Era looked at each other and smiled. They had chosen a name that honored both their cultures. "Minho," Hansol said. In Korean, it means bright treasure. In Lemurian, similar sounds mean bridge between stars. The Lemurian Council appeared on the room's communication screen, but this time their faces showed wonder instead of concern. "The first child of two worlds," the lead council member said softly. "Our scientists confirm he carries the best traits of both species. This is truly a historic moment." As Minho grew over the following months, he developed faster than either human or Lemurian children. By 6 months, he could speak both Korean and Lemurian. His mind showed remarkable abilities to solve problems, while also displaying human creativity and emotion. More importantly, studies of Minho's unique genetic structure led to major medical breakthroughs. Dr. Jae-yun Park and her team developed new treatments for diseases that had long troubled both species. Hospitals around the world began using these new medicines to save lives. 1 year after Minho's birth, Hansol and Era stood before a gathering of Earth and Lemurian leaders. The occasion was the opening of the new International Medical Research Center, built specifically to study and develop treatments based on their son's genetic discoveries. "When I crashed on Earth," Era said in her speech, "I thought I would die. Instead, one human's kindness not only saved my life, but created a bridge between our peoples. Our son represents what we can achieve when we work together." Hansol spoke next. "Minho is more than just our child. He is proof that our differences can make us stronger. His existence has already helped save thousands of lives through new medical treatments. But most importantly, he shows us that love and compassion can cross any boundary, even between the stars." As if understanding the importance of the moment, baby Minho smiled at the crowd, his silver eyes bright and his skin glowing softly. The audience, made up of humans and Lemurians, broke into applause. That evening, as Hansol watched Ara put Minho to bed, he thought about how much had changed since that night when a strange blue light had filled his office. One simple choice, to help someone in need, regardless of where they came from, had changed the course of 2 civilizations. Minho fell asleep, one small hand holding his father's finger, the other touching his mother's glowing skin. In his peaceful face, Hansol saw the future, a future where humans and Lemurians would work together, learn from each other, and grow stronger through their differences rather than being divided by them.